Welcome to the Safety Pro Podcast, where we help you manage workplace safety one episode at a time. And now, your very own Safety Pro, Blaine J. Hoffman.
Welcome to another episode of the Safety Pro Podcast. I'm going to talk about the Voluntary Protection Program today. This is something that I'm excited about. I have been working with VPP and helping companies prepare for VPP on-site assessments and submitting an application, getting their STAR flag, and even recertification. Oh man, over a decade now. So that's exciting. I've learned a lot from different companies. So we're going to dive right into it. But first, I want to talk about something that's also just as exciting to me, and that is I have, this episode, of course, is the first time that I can actually announce that we are, sponsored by VPP Simplified, a tool used for preparing companies to get ready for VPP. And I will break down the tool in detail for you, but, it's exciting. I have a link in the show notes, but it doesn't matter. My whole thing is this is information you can use. I'm not giving you a little tease and telling you to go buy something. If you don't get the VPP Simplified tool, doesn't bother me one bit. I'm still going to break down the 4 elements of the VPP, how to get ready for your application, to submit your application to OSHA if you want to partner with them in the VPP. I'm going to break down all the elements and sub-elements. We're going to talk about what they mean and give you examples of how to comply or how to meet or exceed those minimum program requirements, okay? So don't worry, this isn't just sort of an overview and then go buy a tool. The tool is there, and I've used it for many years. It's something that I helped contribute to and develop, so I know it works, and I wouldn't be telling you about it if I didn't use it myself first, and it's been very successful. Lots of clients that I've used really love this tool and still use it today. As a matter of fact, I've got several past clients that they weren't pursuing VPP. They still use this tool because it breaks down the 4 major elements of an effective safety and health management system, and they were using it to just improve their program. They didn't even want to pursue VPP, at least not at the time I was working with them. So this tool can work for non-VPP employers as well. So don't be afraid that this tool is very, very specific to the Voluntary Protection Program. It is not. It can be used for non-VPP companies. But I digress. Let's get right into the episode of Voluntary Protection Program, the first one, the introduction to VPP. So a lot of folks ask, what is VPP exactly? We know it's the Voluntary Protection Program. It was established by OSHA in the early 80s, and they actually got it from private industry and made it into one of their programs. Essentially, OSHA struggles with a lot of issues. They're a government agency. They're limited in what they can do in scope, as well as with finances. So they have funding through the Department of Labor. So their main charge is to enforce the provisions of the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. So, they enforce the standard. The problem is that you've got so many workplaces and only so many compliance officers. They need some other tools that they can use to do outreach, So while they're reacting to and responding to fatalities, tragedies, catastrophes, complaints, and some programmed inspections of the like, they wanted something else that can get employers to voluntarily, partner with them and share some best practices so that OSHA can learn and grow as well. So VPP is a very effective tool that they use to partner with larger employers. And when I say larger, I don't want to scare off the medium and small companies, because a ton of VPP employers are actually small to medium businesses. So don't worry about that. So it started with, hey, we're going to not be able to reach a lot of smaller contractors and companies until something bad happens. But big companies are hiring them a lot. So maybe we have a program where we get larger companies to partner with us, and they agree to do certain things as far as enforcing safety standards with contractors that they use. So, that was a very good tool to reach smaller companies they normally would never see, that OSHA would never see. So VPP is a great outreach tool, and it is a force multiplier for them. So large companies you will see involved in VPP, that is really one of the big payoffs, is that these large companies employ a lot of contractors year-round at multiple facilities across the country, and OSHA now has a better sense of, through this partnership, these employers are sharing and have some oversight and are reporting the performance of safety for these small contractors. So let's get to the medium and small businesses. One, it makes good business sense, right? If you have a very effective, a very strong safety and health management system, you have an engaged culture, you have leadership commitment, and you want to take it to the next level, partnering with OSHA makes sense if the time is right, if it's the right move for you, for your business. But it's also good customer service. I can tell you firsthand, large companies that hire small contractors and smaller firms, when they ask for your experience modification rates, they ask for insurance, they ask for accident, injury, illness records, being a VPP employer is going to go a long way. It's going to separate you from the rest. So it makes good business sense. It's also not as difficult as you might think to partner with OSHA and VPP, being a small to mid-sized company. Some of the pushback that we hear often is, well, big companies have resources. Well, I don't know. I mean, they have to answer to shareholders. They have budgets. They have limitations, on a different scale. But, I mean, to conduct an arc flash assessment of, 6 or 7 facilities, 500, 700,000 square foot apiece, that's not cheap, not for a big company. And so, a small to medium-sized company may not need an engineering assessment. They may have a smaller facility. They may be able to use some alternative methods allowed under, using an arc flash assessment or arc flash example under NFPA 70E, might be able to just go ahead and comply with some of the alternatives to an engineering assessment. So, it's about learning, educating yourself about what's required in the standards, the different regulations, what OSHA would expect of an employer submitting an application to partner with them in the VPP, and looking internally, seeing what resources do we have, what outside resources are available, and many times they can be affordable, if not free, depending upon what state you live in, your insurance carrier, underwriters offer consulting and things as part of the underwriting package. So it's about really just getting your arms around the scope of what it means to partner with OSHA and what it's going to take to get there. A great example is, a couple episodes ago, I covered how to set SMART goals and objectives for safety and health in your business. The example I used is to, let's say a fictitious company is looking to partner with VPP. How do you break that down into manageable parts? Go back and listen to that episode. That will help you as well. So let's get back to, partnering with OSHA. There are 4 fundamental elements of the VPP that OSHA says, every safety and health management system needs to have at a minimum these 4 basic elements. I am going to talk about the first and most important element of the VPP, and that is management or leadership commitment and employee involvement. So the first element, it's broken down into some sub-elements. We have A, written safety and health management system in general. B, management commitment and leadership. C, planning. D, authority and line accountability. E, contract employees. And F, employee involvement. So let's go ahead and start with a written safety and health management system. So a basic written safety and health management program or safety and health program, it's got to be at least minimally effective to address the scope and complexity of the hazards at your facility, and it has to incorporate all of the other 3 VPP elements. So that's very key. It has to touch on those, and I'll get to those here in a little bit. So you also have to address all of these sub-elements within each of the 4 elements of the program. You have to have this developed in writing, and it has to be signed by top leadership. Basically, this is intended to elicit an overall professional judgment regarding the adequacy of the written program, given the size and complexity of your site and your hazards. Okay, the things to consider are, 1, the size of your site, the complexity of the work that's being performed, whether or not if it involves complex processes, maybe chemical processes, maybe just a lot of machining and tooling work, and the complexity of the hazards at the site. If it involves, a lot of engineering because of machine guarding issues or a chemical hygiene program, things of that nature. Now, as the work site's size increases, it needs more formal communication and written documentation in order to reduce the likelihood of important elements being overlooked due to miscommunication or misunderstanding. So that's why we start with a written safety and health program. It has to cover every aspect of your organization and its operations. It has to be in writing, documented. So getting to B, management commitment and leadership. Your written safety and health management system, it requires senior leaders, managers, and supervisors to set examples by practicing proactive, visible leadership behaviors, demonstrating their commitment to safety and health and the whole program. So you have to be able to prove that senior leaders and managers and supervisors are actually held accountable for meeting certain safety and health milestones, conducting audits, doing safety talks, actually driving by example the safety culture that you're trying to achieve. So some things to consider in this sub-element of the first element of VPP is establishing clear lines of communication with employees. How do you do that? You're going to have to demonstrate this. Do you use morning stand-up meetings? Do you use staff meetings each week? Do you do job site huddles every Monday before getting to work to talk about safety issues and the work that's about to take place? Do you set examples of safe and health behavior? That's going to be critical. If you have any kind of, even an inkling of or a hint of supervisors don't wear the PPE we have to wear when they come out to the floor because, according to them, they're only going to be out on the shop floor for a few minutes, or they get out of their vehicle at the job site, they don't put on safety shoes and boots. Those are showstoppers. You're going to want to watch out for those. You're going to also want to be mindful of whether or not supervision or management or leadership, if they're creating an environment that allows for reasonable employee access to them. Are supervisors available if employees needed them to answer questions or for resources like safety concerns? Also, ensuring that all employees at the site, this includes contract workers, by the way, are provided equally high quality safety and health protection. OSHA is going to come out and do an on-site where they're going to look at written programs, they're going to do some interviews, and they're going to walk around and look at the site. And they're going to try to determine this. Here's another one. Clearly defining responsibility in writing with no unassigned areas. Each employee at any level, must be able to describe his or her responsibility for safety and health. That's the bottom line. You're going to need to pull your HR department or your HR person, or you're going to have somebody, some way of developing roles and responsibilities in measurable, actionable terms that cover safety and health as well. Okay. So affording adequate resources to those who have the responsibility and authority is going to be key as well. This includes resources like time, training, personnel, equipment, a budget maybe, and access to information and experts, internal or external, like certified safety professionals, industrial hygienists, or other licensed healthcare professionals, or other experts that may be needed based on the risks at the site. So if you have some complex chemical processes, you have a lot of machine guarding with engineering controls that need to be designed or created and assessed, but yet you don't have any internal resources and you don't equip or train or provide access to your frontline supervisors to those experts, that's going to be another showstopper. So you're going to have to be able to show how you do some outreach in the industry to pull some of these resources in to manage hazards. Something else that needs to be in writing is, it kind of sounds basic, but I still have come across folks that don't have this, a safety and health mission statement. Now, a mission statement is defining where the facility wants to be regarding safety and health, this process, okay? And that has to be developed. Remember, defining where you want to be regarding the safety and health process. That is your mission. You want to develop a policy statement as well. That is what the facility commits to doing to accomplish the mission. Two different things. Mission statement is where we want to be regarding the safety and health process. Sort of more of a loftier type of statement, but then you automatically pivot to the policy statement of this is what we're going to commit to doing in order to accomplish that. You're also going to need to develop a statement from senior leadership that defines your business's commitment to achieving recognition in the OSHA VPP. You have to develop that. It has to be signed by top leadership. That's a commitment in writing that OSHA likes to see. Also, if you have a union on site, you're going to need to get union support. A statement from the union is required, okay? Is required from union leadership that defines union support and commitment to the business achieving recognition in OSHA VPP. Or they have to be a co-signee for the application that's submitted to OSHA. You also have to have written annual safety and health goals and objectives that are clear, attainable, measurable, relevant. What's this sound like, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Annual, within 12 months. You have to have these developed, and you have to show sort of a history of having been doing this for, a year or more. You have to have a process to annually review and revise those goals and objectives, and you have to be able to demonstrate how are you communicating to all personnel and contractors that you have safety and health goals and objectives developed for your site. You have to demonstrate that. All of those were under management commitment and leadership. So I talked about the written safety and health management system. That was A. B, management commitment and leadership. Now we're going to talk about C, planning. What OSHA wants to see here is quite simple. Does your safety and health management system allow for resources, including designated safety and health staff, equipment, training, and safety awareness promotions to be integrated in the planning process to ensure adequate budget development? They want to see that you're putting your money where your mouth is, that you're not just creating a mission statement and a policy statement and some posters and banners and talking the talk in meetings. They want to see that you're actually, the business from a leadership standpoint is committing to supporting this by saying we're going to do it and then making the resources or access to the resources available. So that's planning. D is authority and line accountability, and there's a couple of points to consider here. OSHA wants to know that senior leadership accepts ultimate responsibility for safety and health and has clearly documented and communicated this, like through organization charts and job descriptions, communicated the assignment of line and staff safety and health authority and responsibility for achieving the safety and health goals and objectives established by the company. That has to be communicated to all personnel and contractors. That's key. Some things to consider. You want to avoid the reliance on too many administrative controls. The reliance on administrative controls makes it necessary that top management accept ultimate responsibility. Without this acceptance, the administrative controls can easily fail. Also, OSHA believes that if a top manager attempts to delegate too much authority, safety and health efforts will likely fail. So there will be insufficient management leadership in place, which is necessary for successful injury and illness prevention. So OSHA is going to be looking for evidence of that. Delegating too much and sort of washing your hands of a lot of the responsibility at the top levels of the organization. It is also a problem when top managers delegate authority to persons who lack sufficient power or resources to ensure an effective safety and health management system. So if you take a middle or lower supervisor foreman, and they're responsible for ensuring safety and health policies and procedures and rules and practices are followed, and yet they have no authority to stop work and suggest changes, and everybody in the management team is above their pay grade, if you will, they're going to deem that inadequate. Also, has management established clear lines of communication with all personnel to ensure they have reasonable access to senior leadership regarding safety and health issues, and provided safety and health information in languages spoken and understood by all workers. They're going to look for all that. Something else to consider here is that managers, supervisors, non-supervisory personnel, are they held accountable for meeting their safety and health responsibilities? And it's through a documented performance standards and appraisal system. They're going to want to see that there is some carrot and stick behind the safety and health responsibilities that are established for each role. To that end, they're also going to want to know what the disciplinary process is like. So again, you're going to need to pull in some HR and some supervisors to talk about how informed are they of the site's disciplinary action program, policies and procedures, including consequences for safety and health infractions. This includes infractions by management and personnel. So what about allocating adequate resources like time, training, access to experts, things like that? Consistent with the previous definition of minimally effective regarding your safety and health management system, here too, the key issue is whether the lack of resources results in employees being exposed to serious uncontrolled hazards. That's what you want to look at. Okay, that's how you're going to know if we're providing reasonable access to this information. So let's move on to sub-element E for contract employees. For VPP, in this first element regarding contract employees, OSHA wants to know that you've developed, documented, and implemented the basic elements of a contractor oversight and management system, and it has to provide equal safety and health protection provided to your personnel. So you basically have to treat them like your own employees regarding having them follow the same rules. Okay, and it has to, at the minimum, meet the requirements of OSHA standards, provide information on emergency procedures, such as evacuation, weather restrictions, and the like. And it also has to require periodic review of that program. And you actually have to ask certain contractors that exceed so many hours per calendar quarter. I think it's 1,000 hours per calendar quarter of work at your facility. You have to ask them to submit injury illness rates annually. So the Contractor Oversight and Management Program includes provisions for roles, responsibilities, authority, and accountability within your company, who's going to manage the contractor safety program, also the coordination and enforcement of contractors' compliance. So how are you going to deal with contract workers not following safety rules in your facility? Who owns that process? You have to be able to explain that. Also, do you provide designated contractor oversight and management personnel? Those you have said, hey, you're going to be responsible for overseeing contractors and you're going to be responsible for managing the contractor policy and program. Do they have the training and authority to be effective in monitoring the quality of safety and health protection for those contract employees? What kind of training, certifications do they have? Also, they're going to want to look for whether or not you are developing sound working relationships with these contractors, especially when contractors' injury illness rates are above the average for their industry. OSHA wants to encourage open communication with them, especially if you have to use them because there aren't that many contractors that do that work around your area. You still have to use them. They want to see that you take some, extra precautions once they arrive on your site to work with them in an outreach, a relationship building type of position with helping them develop their safety and health program. Okay, finally, the last and also equally important sub-element of the VPP, element 1, is employee involvement. So everything starts with trying to gauge what the current state of your culture is in your organization. And the easiest way to do that is to, conduct a safety and health perception survey. It has to involve all categories of personnel, managers, supervisors, hourly workers, new hires, even contract personnel, to establish sort of this culture baseline, right? And what you're also going to want to have to show OSHA is that they're aware, the employees and contractors are aware of their basic safety and health rights afforded them under the Occupational Safety and Health Act, that they're knowledgeable about the safety and health management system as it applies to them in their role, and also that they are actively and meaningfully involved in the facility safety and health program. And this is evidenced by their participation in activities and decision making that impacts their safety and health. You have to have at least 3 ways, meaningful ways employees are involved. So yeah, you can't just say we have a safety committee and we ask for some volunteers to be on the first responder team, and then we have a safety suggestion program. You actually have to show that they're driving the decision-making process. So let's say your first responder team or your emergency response, volunteers that help during fire exits and first aid, stuff like that. Are they doing drills, and then are they doing roundtables after each fire evacuation drill and actually helping to drive decisions like, yeah, I think we need to widen this aisle over here on the west side of the building, or I think, people had a hard time getting to our muster point in the winter. So, the employees should be driving involved in the decision-making process. That's an example of meaningful involvement. Same thing with the safety committee. Are the employees themselves actively picking the best suggestion of the quarter for the reward and recognition program? Are they actually participating in the incident, near miss, or accident investigations where they're suggesting fixes that management then can throw resources at to support? So that partnership, that working together, top to bottom, bottom to top, they want that continuity in place. They're going to look for that in the employee involvement portion of this first element. So that's really key. Make sure you nail that down, okay? One of my earlier episodes, I talked about what is meaningful employee involvement. You might want to go back and listen to that one as well. So I just broke down the first element of VPP, the leadership commitment and employee involvement. There are 4 total elements. This first one is the most critical. It doesn't matter if you're doing, worksite analysis, that you've locked down hazard prevention and controls, and you're doing employee safety and health training. Those are the other 3 elements. If you're lacking meaningful employee involvement and you have little to no upper management commitment, that it doesn't matter. It's not going to work. You need all 4 elements, and it starts with this first one. As I mentioned at the beginning, the VPP simplified tool, the VPP gap tool, if you will, it's an interactive spreadsheet with all this information that you drop down. It's a basic stoplight. You can indicate your current state, red, yellow, green, and you can even tick off after that how you validated that. Did you want to go for the 3 Ps, right? Paper, people, places. So you want to do a document review. You want to have something in writing, policy, a memo, posters, posting, signs, labels, supporting whatever element or sub-element you're reviewing. You want to have that in place. You also want to interview people to see that they understand what it means, where it's at, it's been communicated to them either through training, meetings, or otherwise. And then you also want to go into the workplace and see that it's being sustained. Labels aren't being worn or missing. You've missed that one. So you want to shoot for all 3 of those. The gap tool provides little check boxes. So your current state, you can actually check off the ones you validated, and then you can go and see the bar charts of which sub-elements are lacking, written verification, or we don't really have it in the workplace. We're relying almost solely on employee interviews to tell us that this is how we do things. It tells you where to start and with the stoplight and how you validated that sub-element. It tells you where to put your resources and really tackle some of these big problems out of the gate, along the way capturing that effort in the notes section of the gap tool, which would then become some of the language you pull out and use for the VPP application template. So what you're doing is you're doing your initial current state gap assessment based on very specific requirements of the program. You're validating it at least 3 different ways: paper, people, places. And then you're compiling notes as you go and close those and turn those green and validate them. You get to write down exactly how you meet that subpart, or that sub-element, I should say. And then that can actually help write your application when you get to that point. So this gap tool is very effective. It's easy to use. Again, I've used it personally with many clients over the years, and it's very effective. It's great for doing just your own internal safety and health management system review. And, notwithstanding partnering with OSHA and the VPP, you can use this. So again, link in the show notes to that, or go to consulthoffman.com, 2 F's, 2 N's on Hoffman. It's right there on the homepage. And I'll have more information about the VPP Simplified Gap Tool in future episodes, because I'm going to break down the second, third, and fourth element of VPP in this same way. But look, take notes, go back and listen to this again. I broke down the first element and then every sub-element and described exactly what they're looking for in each of those for that, very important first element of VPP: leadership, commitment, and employee involvement. So again, big response on the last episode that I recorded. I released a bonus episode answering one of those questions. So I'm sure I'll get a lot of feedback on this one as well. I am looking forward to hitting the second, third, and fourth element of VPP. And again, don't be scared off by this partnership with OSHA. If you have no desire to partner with OSHA, these are the 4 elements of any safety and health management system, regardless. If you're doing this, you're a cut above the rest, and you're going to continue to ensure that your employees stay safe, healthy, and engaged at work, which is what you want. So again, thanks for listening, and until next time, stay safe.
Thanks for listening to the Safety Pro Podcast. Be sure to visit www.consulthoffman.com for articles and information about safety services. To have Blaine read your question on the show, email him at customerservice@consulthoffman.com. Be sure to have 2 F's and 2 N's on Hoffman. Until next time, be safe.